I'm Rob.
I'm John.
And this is the Mint One podcast,
where we talk all things NFTs and the rise of blockchain gaming.
So, John, everything's on fire.
Yeah, it's been a week. Let's discuss.
Right. We've done a few now of these dark episodes. It just feels like the frequency has increased. But before we get into, we've got a list of things we want to cover in this episode. Yeah. Obviously, we're going to talk about FTX and the NOT acquisition by Binance and all of that. We're also going to talk about Meta, Solana, a lot of terrible things. And we're going to work through those and see how they affect us and the NFTs and blockchain gaming industries. But first, let's actually start on a positive note. To treat ourselves to a bit of positivity, which is AtomicHub Live in London, was a success to my eyes. I mean, as a organizer, I'm sure spotted flaws, but everyone I spoke to was pleased with it. I enjoyed it, and it was great to see the Wax community all in the flesh.
Yeah, no, it was by all metrics, I think it was a very successful event. Obviously, we put the tickets on for free. We sold 500. 500 people didn't turn up, but we weren't expecting that anyway. But by all means, those that did turn up were kind of, all the key people in the Wax community. So it was great to see everyone come together, like you said. And yeah, I think we put on a great event. We had some very interesting announcements, that's for sure.
Yeah,
not just from us, but from projects in the community as well, talking about all the things that they're building and what they're working on. So yeah, no, really good event. I think this is just something I noticed, but did you see any of the smoke machines at the event?
Very confusing.
We never asked for smoke machines.
It added drama.
They just appeared and started spewing out smoke, and then there was me and a few of the and Natalie, our head of events, were like, "What's going on here?" Yeah,
there was a few of us went for lunch, and then we came back to the room we were sitting in. There's this sort of side room with the tables, and we were like, "Is it smoky in here? Is there an atmosphere?"
I think that's something we'll change for next time for sure. But
I don't know. I liked it.
It created some ambiance, I suppose.
It did.
But anyway, yeah. Just running through the event real quick. Obviously, I spoke to Nigel Carlos, director of Martin Value Worlds, on stage. We had the panel with yourself and Jimmy T and Ennio talking about growing your audience. Loads of project presentations, and of course the announcements from AtomicHub, which now I've got to try and remember them all off the top of my head, which is going to be pretty difficult. The biggest one is obviously the partnership with Immutable-X, which should come Q1 next year.
Yeah, that's great.
The partnership with Metacarbon to introduce carbon offsets to users, which is now live.
Nice.
Partnership with GameSpace for a few drops coming later, either before the end of this year or Q1 next year. The Launchpad, where we're going to handle all of your tax worries and things, and also facilitate primary drops. And Beast Kingdom will be the first people to use that system, and they're going to bring some little physical Ultraman figures to the Wax, which should be really cool. Also the launch of Atomic Ads, which is our kind of full service ad platform. So you can, we all know how difficult it is to advertise on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, and everywhere else if you're doing anything remotely connected to NFTs or cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So we've built a platform to make it easy for you and to reach out to audiences and all that good stuff. I think that's most of the main ones, but there's obviously other things we're working on in the background. So
that's a lot. That's a
lot of exciting stuff. It was nice to finally be able to talk about it because, like, from my point of view as like our head of content, it felt like there was so much we were working on and nobody knew any of it. Now everything's coming thick and fast. So in the next 6 months, there's going to be so much cool stuff come out. So yeah, looking forward to it. But no, I think that wraps up AtomicHub Live London quite well. So let's move on to...
can I just throw one more thing in?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm going to go a really roundabout way of saying this. When I went to university, I didn't end up studying this, but I thought I wanted to do journalism and creative writing. I ended up doing both for a year and then moving degrees entirely. because they were terribly, terribly boring. But in creative writing, we had to do this unit, right? This is linked to AtomicHub Live. I bet you can't guess how I'm going to end up back there. I did this unit on poetry, obviously, and I'm not a big poet. I'm not big into poetry, but I can appreciate a good one. And it was interesting to learn about the greats. And our lecturer said that one of the ways you become a great poet is learning how to express things in the fewest words possible. I reckon you now know where I'm going. And essentially distilling a thought into as few words that loses no meaning, loses no information, despite the fact you've shrunk it down to as few words as possible. So you want it as vivid, but as brief as possible. And if Anders, NEO, any observation, isn't a poet, he should think about a career change, because, I mean, his answers to the questions on that panel were so succinct, but they weren't like lacking in information or content or value. They were just as succinct as humanly possible. It was poetry.
It was impressive, that's for sure.
And he's not his mother tongue either, which makes it all the more impressive.
No, it's probably the best spoken of us all on that stage. In fact, although I think
very impressive.
we all brought something different. I brought my kind of fast speaking, nobody can understand me way of dialogue. Ennio brought his poet-esque, conciseness. Jimmy brought Jimmy's insights were great. So some really quality stuff. And then, of course, yourself we know how good you are of an orator through this podcast. So
am I? I'm not sure about that.
Let us know on Twitter.
Let's know in the comments. Who's the mumbling of the two of us? I'll add a marker for swearing. I'm actually going to add another marker because Jimmy, as much as we love Jimmy, he absolutely shit on blockchain gaming in the middle of that panel. But I don't disagree. I didn't really disagree with him. He was like, most blockchain games are just rubbish right now.
I'll be the first person. I'll be the first person to second that and say I think 95% of blockchain projects as a whole are complete right now. There's going to be a lot of markers back to back.
That's fine.
but there's a lot of diamonds in the rough, and there's some cool things coming. So, speaking of an event where some of those cool things should have been showcased, let's move on to NFT.London. Rob, initial thoughts?
Okay, well, I have no affiliation with NFT.London, so I can say what I want. And I was wholeheartedly disappointed. I tend not to be negative about stuff like this, particularly when it's kind of a first. I like to, cut people slack. At least something happened. At least someone tried something. But given how successful NYC was, I expected so much more, and I was really disappointed. I guess my perspective isn't necessarily looking at the whole picture of NFT.London. I was interested in blockchain gaming projects particularly, but that does extend to gamification and metaverse and middleman tools, and there's lots that blockchain gaming extends to. There was a handful of games, max. Don't get me wrong, the ones I played were pretty interesting. Illuvium was there as well. Gods Unchained, I just wanted to meet some of the people behind Gods Unchained in person, because that's like my proudest achievement so far in Web3 is 2018. I said Gods Unchained would be one of the best Web3 games we're going to get for a while, and it is. And I just wanted to actually meet them in person. There was no one at their booth. I was on that floor for a collective 4 hours probably, and I never saw a person at their booth. So I didn't get to speak to them. There were a smattering of other games. Most of them I hadn't heard of. Some of them looked okay, but really, really low down on the ranking, which is not a problem, but I'd like them peppered in with the big dogs. But it was Illuvium was the only major project there. And it just felt empty. And I saw someone make a joke on Twitter that the only reason one of the floors, so it was a little exchange on Twitter. Someone said, they took a picture of one of the talks, and it was like the hall was empty, and that did feel a bit harsh because there were a lot of talks and there were a lot of halls and stuff. And then someone said, "Oh, you can't. That's not fair. Like, show the floor with loads of people on." And then someone said, "Yeah, all those people are speakers," because there's like 800 different speakers. So yeah, I mean, I'm really, really disappointed. I hope they can do better than that next time.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said there, if I'm honest. I will balance it out a little bit by saying, obviously, we as AtomicHub came as one of the main sponsors. We had a booth in a very good position below the main stage for all the gaming talks and gaming tracks. So I think from a business perspective, we had a lot of positive conversations, made a lot of good connections, had some good meetings, and I think from a business perspective, it was very fruitful for us. But removing obviously the aspect of AtomicHub being a sponsor and onto my personal opinion, I think it had a lot of the same problems that New York had. If you're going to give 800 people, 900 people the ability to speak on stage, one, loads of those are going to be poorly attended, and two, a lot of those people aren't going to be good speakers or aren't going to be good panelists. I spent half a day emceeing the gaming track on day one. I think I did okay. Nothing special. You know, it was the first time I'd done any emceeing like that. So
I didn't see all of it, but some of it.
Yeah, no, I thought that was okay. But I mean, some of the panels that were on stage were fantastic. Some Angela Dalton, Hugo Madonna, the Beyond the GM people. Some of those panels were fantastic. Some of them had good insights on. But there were some that were just like, hey, guy on stage, 5 minutes, pitch your project.
Yeah.
Or, 20-minute talks that just didn't really go anywhere and weren't engaging and were a bit boring. And I feel like I can say that because one of the last people to come on and during my MC track was, forgive me, I can't remember their names, but there were these three comedians basically being like, oh my God, this is so boring. All of you in this room are so boring. We need to liven the place up a bit. And I was like, yes, thank you so much. Yep. But yeah, the attendance was, I think, I can't remember the figures off their recap email off the top of my head, but I think it's about 2,500 people total. And if you've got 600, 700, 800 of those that are speakers, that's bad.
Terrible.
Objectively bad. And I think the conference in general suffered from the fact that Web Summit Lisbon was happening at the exact same time. Which had 70,000 people attend it.
Yeah, wish I'd
and
been
a lot of the people, yeah, so do I actually. A lot of the people that would have been at NFT.London or would have expected to be there were at Web Summit. The Sandbox were there. I think CZ from Binance was there. William Quigley from Wax was there. All these big prominent, next generation Web3 projects all went to Lisbon instead of London.
Yeah.
And that was probably the right thing for them to do. I mean, if you go back to NFT NYC, all of the big collections were there. You had your apes, you had your doodles, you had your cool cats, you had all the big games. Everyone was there. Everyone was exhibiting or doing something. You go to London, and I mean, obviously you've got Immutable there that are going to bring Immutable's projects, and you've got AtomicHub that are there, but you don't have a big there was a meetup for Cool Cats holders, but that was more like a spontaneous thing rather than hey, let's do this really cool event kind of thing. It was none of the kind of the blue chips or the big impressive projects were there, and the event really suffered because of it. And similar to NFT NYC, a lot of the attendees were just crypto bros. I mean, if you're not speaking and you're getting your ticket for free, who in their right mind is going to spend $800 or $1,500? Oh, sorry, it was about $500 for general admission or $1,500 for VIP to listen to a load of mediocre talks, go and visit 25 booths. It's not worth your time or your money. And I remember the message that you sent to me prior to day two, which
you can read it. I don't remember what I said, but make it public.
No, I can't remember what you said. Did you text it to me or was it WhatsApp?
I think it's probably WhatsApp. It's probably in the group that I was moaning in.
So the message you sent to me, 8:51 a.m. on Friday. Morning, mate. I'm not going to be in London today. I'll take that line out. No way I'm doing this again for that event. Met everyone yesterday anyway. As for the pod, I guess we'll have to miss a week. Because we were going to record a pod on that Friday. But I totally understand why you...
I was, in defense...
You wanted to come back to the second day.
I was mega ill. I still am ill. But I was mega ill, and my son's been ill, and it's just been a bit of a nightmare. But... I'd visited every single booth that had any relevance to me. I'd exchanged contact information. We'd connected on LinkedIn. I'd done everything by about 4 or 5 p.m. on that first day. It just felt, it was the ticket prices, I think, that really bothers me. They're just too expensive.
They were basically the same as New York.
Yeah,
which for a conference ridiculous. Like 10% of the size is stupid.
Yeah, and the speaking thing, I mean, I completely agree. And I think you should have a handful of flagship speakers. You can't, because all it turned into was 800 people pitching. It was just pitching people, hoping for investment, and it's boring.
I think the amount of speakers they have directly harms the better ones. Because there were some incredible panels whilst I was emceeing on stage, but they got the same attendance as the guys that were just doing like this 5-minute crap pitch.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you gave more of an elevated platform and highlighted these really quality people and the people that everyone wants to go and see, you're going to bring more attendees in. Because at the moment, the same for New York, it was like, hey, we've got like 1,500 speakers, which is cool, and they try and highlight the better ones, but it's difficult to tell, you know.
Disappointing.
Disappointing. They did announce their next event, NFT NYC, in April next year. If that builds on the 2022 NYC one, then I'm sure it's going to be a great event. But I'm unsure what the future of their events across the pond.
I mean, I won't go to another one unless they do something significantly different. I won't be going to the London one again. I probably will go to the New York one. So, you know, I'm not trying to boycott them.
No.
I have nothing against them. It was a poor event that was way overpriced, way too many speakers, not enough exhibitors, and not enough big projects. I mean, it sucks that it was the same time as Web Summit Lisbon, but someone's made a mistake there.
Yeah. They should have known.
If they made the decision to go head to head, they lost badly. Yeah. So
whoever made that decision, I don't know what the thought process would have been behind that decision.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are planned months in advance. Web Summit Lisbon, you know, the dates for that were known way in advance. So it's, yeah. Two kind of final things I'd like to say on the NFT NYC point. One, did you get any of the Regen fries from the McCain's van? So
I'm nervous about this. Did you ask that because you know the answer?
I don't know the answer, actually. I didn't see you.
So Jimmy and I we walked past the booth inside for the Regen fries. And I said to Jimmy, I actually really like that girl's bright yellow hoodie. I should have worn it today. And the cameraman for McCain's heard me and said, you can have one if you can look pleased when they give it to you on camera. So I haven't seen the video anyway. I couldn't find it, and I'm really hoping it never surfaces. But I took the bag with the hoodie in it, and I turned round and I gave the most sarcastically excited smile that I was getting some rubbish yellow hoodie. And then I was doing something else with the hoodie, and I noticed he was still filming me. And then we went outside to the food truck, and we had the chips, which were amazing, by the way. I mean, they really were tasty. I'm like the McCain's ambassador now. And as I was ordering the chips, I was talking to Jimmy and like laughing, and I realized the cameraman was now in the back of the truck filming me buying chips and laughing. So I'm just like this idiot fanboy that just can't get enough of McCain's. So I'm really hoping the promo video doesn't ever circulate. Or he cuts me. He cuts me out of it. So no, that guy's an idiot. Let's get rid of him.
I'm looking forward to seeing that for sure. I'll keep an eye out for it. They were very good. Did you get the POAP from the truck?
The what?
There was a POAP at the truck. Did you get it?
I don't know what you're saying. What's a POAP?
Proof of attendance NFT.
Oh, I've never heard it. I've never heard it said like that. No, I didn't actually. I got
because they did a really bad job of promoting the freaking thing. So
really?
At the truck, there was no signs to tell you that this was the case. There was one of those black like NFC tag thingies. And I spotted it and I was like, oh, that kind of looks like an NFT. So I just scanned it and it was like, hey, claim your McCain Regen Fries EU launch NFT. And I was like, oh crap. So the last time I looked at this, about only 100 people actually got the NFT.
Really?
Definitely more than 100 people got those fries. That's for sure.
Well, I've got the bright yellow. I mean, I'm so tempted to just run and get it. It's so good.
It's pretty cringy. Right?
I'm doing it.
I mean, yeah.
Sorry,
go
mate.
for it.
Hang on.
Oh, wow.
Look at this number.
That's loud. Oh, wow. It even says Regen fries on it.
Yeah. Oh, that is good stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. Fan of that. It's actually very good fabric. I mean, I'll give him that.
I don't even know what to say.
This is the first shill I've ever done on the podcast, and I'm
this will probably be the one and only time you wear the hoodie as well.
Almost definitely. My girlfriend was outraged that I brought it home. But what can you do?
Oh, well, actually, both of us brought something back from McCain. You got the hoodie. I decided to be a hoarder and actually take the chip box back with me.
Did you? They're quite cool, though. They're quite cool. Bored and hungry.
They are very cool. And to be fair, if you actually looked into the story behind the fries and how they're made and all that stuff, it's actually pretty cool. Yeah,
it's sustainable and what's not to like.
Yeah, and how the hell they partnered with a Bored Ape holder, I have no idea, but I'm glad they did. That was one point. And the second one was the vending machine. Did you try the vending machine, Rob?
No, I didn't. I saw it, but I didn't. I kept forgetting to try it.
So by the time this goes live, we'll have probably published the article.
Is it the ones at the front, do you mean?
Yeah, the myNFT one. So, funny enough, I think this vending machine got the most media coverage out of everything that happened in NFT.London. Like, Bloomberg did an article on it, various other people did an article on it, and it was basically just being like, what the hell's this thing? Like, nobody cares. Like, why? Why? And I got an NFT from it. Zach, who was one of our writers of the event, he got an NFT from it, and I'm sure that for the Web3 folk, it was kind of a cool gimmick. But to the general public, I wouldn't say it was received poorly, but it was more received in a why? Why is this a thing? Like, members of the general public, there's a very small chance they're going to actually go up to it and be like, oh yeah, I'll spend £10 to buy something I have no idea about, basically. Anyway, we've been back and forth at NFT Insider with the myNFT team since then. We have an article coming out discussing the whole situation and why for most of the event the vending machine didn't work, and why when you purchased the NFT it said you were buying milk on your bank transactions, and all the other weird, bizarre things surrounding that vending machine. So you can look out for that in the next few days. Anyway, that probably rounds off the positive things to talk about. Let's deep dive into all of the crap that's happened these last 2 weeks. Let's kick off with kind of one of the. I mean, at the time it was major news across the community, but I think it's fallen by the wayside a bit now. OpenSea considering and then retracting a 0% creator royalties model. It's caused fairly widespread backlash, kind of akin to when they wanted to limit how many NFTs people could mint. Yeah, if you remember that from a couple of months ago. Yeah. But this was a way more kind of furious response to OpenSea even considering doing it. Rob, did you see any of the conversations on Twitter?
I haven't seen any of the conversations, but I mean, you go through the highlights by all means, but I can imagine what it just shows how out of touch they are with their user base. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they officially backtracked on it. I think it was a day or two ago with quite a long Twitter thread, basically being like, well, the trend of people buying NFTs with and not choosing to honor creator royalties isn't going to change, so don't blame us, kind of thing, which was a very weird response, but they backtracked on it anyway. But they did show some interesting data showing, I think it was of all blue chip NFT collections, almost 50% of the transactions in the last few, I can't remember exactly what the time period was, but 50% of recent transactions for blue chip NFTs have been done with 0% creator royalties. Like, purchasers have chosen to go to marketplaces that mean that they don't have to pay creator royalties. So it's becoming an increasing problem across the space that more and more people just don't want to pay royalties, especially in a bear market, which I can kind of understand. But in that thread, OpenSea was like, hey, you know, there's ways that creators can enforce these royalties, and we would highly recommend creators explore those options if they'd like to do so. But it was, there was certainly a furore in the community for that 4 or 5 days where it looked a certainty it was going to be implemented. But I think this creator royalties discussion is just going to keep rolling. I can't see a stop to it anytime soon. I can certainly understand the creator point of view, where, you know, creators, especially the ones that aren't making tons of money, would like to make enough off the secondary market transactions in order to continue doing what they do full time. I can also completely understand it from the user perspective, where it's a bear market and every $10, $20 is meaningful. We had, just as a tangent here, we had a bit of feedback on the AtomicHub feedback platform a couple of days ago, where a creator in the community was basically saying, why do you cap creator royalties at 16%? Why not 25%? And I think that's probably... Oh, I mean, we had Sasha, one of the people on our team, go back to them and say, look, basically, if you're going to put your creator royalties at 25%, like we see in our data, the higher the royalty fees go, the less people trade. So if you want to set your royalty fees at 25%, you're probably going to see not a lot of trading activity. Like, that's just our perspective on it. But there's a lot of strong opinions on both sides. And until there's proper standards industry wide to either enforce royalties or, I mean, I put a tweet out saying ultimately it should be in the hands of the creators. Like, it should be down to the creator whether or not people buying their NFTs can pay 0% royalties, 5% royalties, 2%, whether they can choose, whether it's enforced. But it's a difficult topic. There's no end in sight to it either.
No, I've got a few thoughts on it. It's not my area of expertise. I'm not a high volume trader. I also don't buy blue chip NFTs, but for what it's worth, I've worked in the creative industries and I know how much royalties can mean to people. I've always felt a bit as if I'm disengaged with the problem slightly, in that, you know, this is in the UK, I know it's different in the US, but if you went into a shop and you bought a TV, the VAT is included, like the tax is included in the price. Yep. So you don't think about, I can't believe I have to pay the tax on this. It's just baked into the price. I don't see why we can't do that. Or I'd love to know if there's a genuine reason why it's not just less obvious that because it feels like you're being penalized for buying something when that's not really what's happening. It's just a redistribution of the fee to benefit the creator. So I don't know why that can't be solved, but that doesn't solve the problem of people circumnavigating royalties. And I don't think that is a solution. And this brings me to my second point, which is I really dislike these marketplaces proposing 0% royalties as a solution to the problem. All you're doing is leaving the problem. You're walking away from the problem. A solution would be allowing people to choose their royalty fees and then stopping people from circumnavigating around that fee, right? So you can't, if your problem is my car has broken down, a solution to your car being broken isn't walking instead of driving. It's fixing the car. By just changing to 0% royalties model, you've done nothing for the problem. You've just walked away from the problem. And third and finally, I said this last time when they put the mint cap, or they proposed the mint cap. I said, I'm glad they listened to their users and the feedback, and I'm glad they're willing to backtrack, because a lot of companies won't do that. I do still feel that way, but I don't know. This is such a weird decision to me that they would do that. I mean, maybe they've obviously got a lot more data. Perhaps I know things like CryptoPunks have never had royalty fees, and I don't really think that's that relevant. But I get they're probably going off far more data than I've ever seen. But it just feels a little out of touch, and as if they're focusing on the wrong things. And I imagine they're focusing on the blue chip NFT sales are probably what makes them all their money. Complete guess, have no idea. They're going to care less about the higher frequency trades, and there's probably not going to be that many of them on OpenSea anyway, because it's a lot of the NFTs are on Ethereum mainnet and blah blah blah. So yeah, strange one.
Yeah.
Strange.
I would have thought. I mean, this is pure speculation from my point of view, but I would have thought that OpenSea are currently looking at data and seeing them lose market share to marketplaces that are either enforcing or giving the option of 0% royalties. And that's probably informed their decision somewhat. And quite frankly, there are increasingly more and more competition in the marketplace space that honestly have better features than OpenSea does in a lot of cases. I mean, it was only recently that OpenSea enabled analytics per collection, which is something that has been in the space for ages. And if you go to, I don't know if you've ever used Magic Eden, the Solana marketplace, but some of the features that Magic Eden are putting in recently are amazing. I don't know if you've used their Pro Trade feature.
No.
It's basically like having, when you go and you want to do some cryptocurrency trading and you see the graphs and you see, all the different metrics and things, they've basically taken that approach to buying and selling NFTs of a particular collection. So, a live updating floor, a live updating sales list, scatter graphs, all the stuff you would need to assess whether you're making a sound purchase, whether, the purchase that you want to make is a good idea. And, that's far and away, I mean, that's miles ahead of anything OpenSea is doing. So, yeah, I think OpenSea are trying to find more and more ways to compete.
That wasn't that wasn't one way they should have taken.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I think AtomicHub, we've made our stance on this pretty clear. We put a tweet out on our Twitter a few days ago being like, hey, what are people's thoughts on this whole situation? And our Chief Revenue Officer, Jeffrey, replied to it, and he said, and I quote, I think that any marketplace that chooses not to enforce creator royalties should similarly choose not to enforce marketplace fees. If they expect creators to sacrifice revenues, they should too, otherwise they are parasites. I think that perfectly encapsulates.
I mean, I like it, but that went strong at the end.
but it is a fair point. A lot of these, OpenSea, for example, they used to, I think it's a 2% marketplace fee. If they're expecting creators to forego that fee, why should we not expect the marketplace to do the same thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels like this weird level of hypocrisy, but I'm sure people kind of get that. So let's move on to another one. I'm going to rearrange some of these a bit just so it makes a little more sense. So let's move on to Meta.
Okay. Wait 1 second.
What's going on?
Before we start discussing mass redundancies, FTX, and all the horrendous situation, I cannot look like a 90s Vanilla Ice while we have a very serious conversation. So this is going to have to go because that just seems wildly inappropriate to me.
There we go.
Cool.
All good.
Okay, there we go. Now we can have a serious conversation.
Let's kick off with Meta. So, obviously, I mean, Meta's building of their metaverse and all the things they're trying to do with VR and AR has been hitting the headlines for a lot of this year.
Yeah.
But primarily, the huge amounts of money that Meta is piling into developing these metaverse, these AR, these VR features, furthering development on the headsets and everything else they're looking to do. So they cut, I believe it was 12 or 13% of their workforce, which turns out to be 11,000 employees worldwide from Meta. And what Mark Zuckerberg had to say on it was quite interesting. It wasn't a, hey, we're going to cut all of these staff and roll back what we're trying to do with the metaverse and with our headsets. It was kind of, hey, we're making these savings so we can continue piling money into the metaverse and our headsets. So they're basically cutting in other areas. So, with with certain areas of staff on their social networks and other areas of the company to basically not double down, but to ensure that they could continue their level of commitment to what they view as the future. And of course, that's been received poorly. Not quite as poorly as Elon Musk's firing of a lot of Twitter employees, which I'm not going to get into.
We haven't even got time. Haven't got time.
But at least he did it with some modicum of, well, a minutiae more respect, I feel, than how Elon treated Twitter's employees. But anyway, it's interesting. I mean, has Meta, Facebook, ever cut as many staff as they have this time around? I don't think so. But it's interesting to hear that despite these cuts, they want to continue trying to build their next Facebook. In theory, like they want to be in control of the future of Web3. You know, they built the first prominent social network. They made all the advertising money off of it. And they want to create the first prominent metaverse and presumably control all the advertising channels for that as well. So, yeah, bizarre times. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a weird one. It's a shame, obviously, and it's very difficult for the people that are affected. Mass redundancies are horrible, particularly when on the run up to Christmas, no less. But I saw one stat which I thought was quite interesting. I haven't got it anymore. It was on my phone and I don't know where it is, but apparently, so everyone's saying that they fired, 11,000 employees. In 2022, they have hired 16,000, apparently. So people are making out like it's this company just shrinking as quickly as they can and they're just like on a death spiral. But actually they've seen growth. It kind of reminds me of the mainstream media saying, oh, crypto's down 90%, but then they pick the all-time high as the point to which to measure it. I mean, but if you zoom out 10 years, it's obviously up 1 billion%. Like it kind of feels like that. But then I don't know how it's working. I think you're absolutely right. I think they more or less pioneered Web 2. They want to pioneer Web 3. And I'm not sure if I want them to do that. I don't think I do.
There's a lot of, obviously with Facebook's history when it comes to handling data, there's a lot of people hesitant at the prospect of Meta having any form of control over what the future of Web3 is, which is totally justified.
Yeah. They'd have to gain the trust of users again because they've lost it en masse.
Yeah. Well, from Mark's point of view, I think he needs to regain the trust in his investors as well. I think he made, when he decided to make 11,000 people redundant, he mentioned that, hey, look, I'm piling 100 billion into this thing that a lot of people don't know what it is. And it's obviously got people worried, and they're expected to be. He's piling all this money into this vague idea of what the future should be, which is going to scare anyone. But in fairness, Jack Dorsey also said something relatively similar last week, where he was like, hey, we grew too quickly, we hired too many people too quickly, and that's why Elon's had to come in and cut so many staff. So maybe it's just, obviously there's a lot of macroeconomic factors right now, but they're having a big impact on these huge tech giants. But who knows? Who knows what place Meta will play in the future of the metaverse? Let's move swiftly on. I'm going to leave Utes slightly because it's tangentially related to the whole Solana issue. Let's go on to something that's related to the Wax blockchain, which is the issue with damaged Funkos. Have you seen any of this?
No, none of this. I didn't know this was a thing at all.
So basically, there was some issue at the fulfillment facilities that Funko are using to distribute the NFT-exclusive physical Funkos that are going to wax collectors right now. And basically, the boxes are arriving scuffed, they're arriving damaged, and there's a lot of very unhappy people in the drop Discord, which is where the main discussion for this is going on. And people are rightly quite annoyed. I mean, for anyone who's a Funko collector, you know, and we speak to some people in the AtomicHub team, which are huge Funko collectors, you know, every single little scratch on a box can be like devastating to the value of that long term. So to see some of these boxes have like fairly serious damage to them by the time they get to their recipients, people are rightly annoyed because in a lot of cases they've paid decent amounts of money to get these. I mean, we've seen the past few Funko drops, like drop-wise, have gone fairly well. I don't think we've seen many bots get their hands on these kinds of things, but this is not a good look for Funko. It's not a good look for Wax, and it's ultimately Funko, in my eyes, is kind of holding the Wax ecosystem together right now. It's the one collection that has like wider public appeal that people who don't usually trade on Wax or trade NFTs at all can go to Wax for. Is, you know, hey, I can get my hands on these exclusive Funkos. And if there's any issues with that, it's a big problem for the chain and, of course, for Funko's reputation. I think the drop team have said that they're going to work on fixes and they're going to work on making it good for everyone, but it's not what Funko needed. It's not what the community needed or what Wax needed right now. And I really hope they manage to fix these out. I think they have said they're going to move some of the redemption dates around so those distribution centers are under a bit less pressure and they can make sure that the next batches will go out okay. But I don't have any of those kind of NFT exclusive physical Funkos. But if I had paid, I don't know, the equivalent $200 for one and it came to my door like all broken and, you know, the box all messed up, I would be furious. So I can understand what all those collectors are feeling.
Yeah. Were these, I mean, it's not really my wheelhouse, the Funkos thing. I've never been particularly into the physical collectibles either, so I just don't know much about it. Were they viral NFTs?
Yes. So, effectively, Funko do a drop every 2 weeks. They drop about 15,000 packs. There's like a 0.something% chance of getting an NFT that you can redeem in like 6 months' time for an exclusive physical Funko NFT.
And that's using Wax's viral NFT, like software technology network.
I'm not too sure. So basically what happens is you have to hold a certain NFT by a certain date.
Yeah.
If you are, they take a snapshot of all the accounts and they'll send you a redemption token.
Right.
And then if you send that back to the Funko/drop team, then, you know, you can fill in your address and they'll send you the NFT that you've got. So I'm not sure if that works off Wax's proprietary viral technology or not. But
I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just that was, if you remember, months and months and months ago, we talked about viral NFTs, and I really like the idea, and there's a lot of applications for it commercially. The age-old one that you and I discuss a lot is watches. There's some things people buy that they don't necessarily want to have in their house straight away, and if someone could look after it, then that'd be great. But the obvious flaw, or not so much a flaw, but risk, is the storage of that item. And this is kind of an example of that. Like, it's not, you wouldn't do it if you thought there was any risk that where it's being stored or when it does finally get delivered to you, it's going to be damaged. That kind of undermines the whole thing. So, I mean, hopefully Funko seem great. I'm sure they'll make it right. But, that's obviously not a great start. No, it's a setback.
Speaking of viral technology, I think I can talk about this now, but, I think it's been common knowledge that AtomicHub's been working on unlockable content on NFTs for some time. So I'm not sure if I want to get into the specifics of doing this, but there would effectively be ways for creators to kind of run their own physical redemption system using our unlockable content. But I'll leave it to creators to figure out how they want to set that kind of thing up. But I think that's supposed to hit or land next week. I think it's currently in testing. So
nice,
interesting. So let's move on to the tangentially related topic, which was the Utes mint. Rob, have you minted a Ute? Have you acquired a Ute? Did you see all of them pop up on Twitter?
I can't remember again. It's a little out of my wheelhouse, but wasn't this a collection that I tried to get and I couldn't get in on the browser I was using? Was it?
Yes,
it was, wasn't it?
This was the one Jimmy told us about.
Yeah, and they didn't have, it wasn't mobile enabled, and I wasn't at my desk, and I was like,
yeah,
okay, well,
and Wayne Rooney apparently got one.
Weird. Sure. Yeah. So no, I didn't. I did try and get one. I was interested in getting one, but no, I didn't manage it.
So basically, they revealed the artwork and the NFTs were available to mint. I think it was about a week and a half ago. And the initial, I believe, a lot of user orders just immediately dumped. The price just after the mint was about $5,000. I believe. Well, what's the price of Solana right now? Has it recovered much?
No.
It's currently $18, so it's probably still under $1,000.
Right.
So
how much were they to mint?
Oh, I don't remember. If I'm honest, I wasn't able to mint one. But
right.
If it was like any typical mint, it would be 0.08 or 0.25 or
Yeah, it wasn't a lot though, was it? Like $5,000
so.
Would be a huge profit.
No, I don't believe so. But again, I think it was another one of these projects where all the influencers get in, they dump it for to however much Solana it is, and then leave it for everyone else to pick it up. I mean, I've been considering whether I want to purchase any Solana in this current market, because I was considering getting a Ute, but there's a lot of Fractor Gods, is I suppose the main spokesman for Utes at this point. I think he's attracted controversy in the last few weeks for backtracking on things. So initially saying that Utes would have no creator royalties, and then backtracking on that, and saying, hey, we're Solana maxis, we'll absolutely stay on Solana, and then hinting on Twitter, I think a day or two ago, that he could bridge the entire collection to Ethereum. And
right.
It's not inspiring a lot of confidence right now. I did listen to a Twitter space that he was on yesterday, with a couple of other people in the community, and I think, understandably, it's a very difficult position to be in, especially regarding the wider Solana situation at the moment. So,
yeah, a bit messy.
I think it's time to get into the whole Solana, FTX, Binance furore.
Yeah, we should.
Last week. Before
we start, we should add the obvious caveat that we aren't financial experts. We aren't
absolutely not.
We aren't like forensics. We can't pour through all the data. I have been following it very closely. I've got friends that it's affecting with what they do for work. I've listened to a number of different podcasts. I listened to the Twitter space and the last two podcasts of CoinDesk, because obviously I think Ian Allison is the journalist who broke the story. But okay, now we're getting ahead of ourselves. Do you want to give an overview of the issue?
Right. So let's go back to about a week ago. Solana, there's been some rumors floating around Solana for I think some time now that something was up, or there was something not quite right. This factors into the story later, but I thought I'd mention it at the start here. So basically, I think it was 2, 3, 4 days ago, something like that. I mean, these last few days have felt like years. So
they have.
let's take it slowly. But so effectively, the FTX, which is a major exchange, hits liquidity difficulties, and people discovered, and whether this is correct or not, you can go and find for yourself, but that there were certain, I can't remember the name of the capital company, but there was this one company holding 10% of it was either the FTT token, or but basically there was speculations that there were numerous big holders of particular tokens that were starting to hit difficulty. This obviously spooks a lot of people, and FTX or the community in general loses a lot of faith in FTX. Let's say, obviously, this basically. The price of FTX as an entity falls through the floor, and then rumors start to circulate that Binance are considering acquiring FTX, which, I mean, FTX was one of FTX's biggest, FTX is one of Binance's biggest competitors, So I'm sure if CZ spotted an opportunity, he would float in and be like, hey, if everything's going well here, if everything's above board, then it might be a great opportunity for us to, acquire them. But then Binance did their due diligence on FTX as a business. And there were a few news reports at the time, and then CZ basically confirmed it on Twitter that there were major concerns over how FTX was handling deposited funds. And this incited even more worry, rightly so, because people were like, well, what the hell? FTX is holding, $8 billion in assets, and there's now rumors that they're mishandling people's crypto. So there's obviously a major, major issue here. So Binance find all this out. They then back out of the deal to acquire FTX, and all of this triggers a massive crash in the crypto markets. I mean, last night in particular, I spent a good few hours on one of my monitors with CoinMarketCap open, and just every cryptocurrency was just falling through the floor. Ethereum hit $1,100. I think Bitcoin dipped below 16K. Solana went, I believe, as low as $13, which, if this time last year, Solana was worth $234. And it went down to 13 yesterday. Yeah. It's now back up to 18.5, but
big losses.
Huge losses. Let's carry on with the timeline of events. So a couple of hours before this podcast was set to be recorded, Sam Bankman-Fried, who's the CEO of FTX, publishes a Twitter thread, basically being like, hey, I f***ed up. I'm sorry, we'll fix it, which hasn't helped. A lot of people are rightly annoyed that they have a lot of their assets holed up in FTX and now can't get a hold of them. And people are basically asking for the community's $8 billion back. It seems almost a certainty at this point that FTX will go bankrupt. And as CZ from Binance has said, they're not viewing it as a positive in any stretch of the imagination. It is a huge black mark on the industry right now, because obviously the community is losing funds, right? Lots of NFTs, lots of crypto are just, who knows where they are right now. But also, at a time where both US and EU bodies are discussing regulation around exchanges, regulation around crypto, NFTs, marketplaces, all of this, it puts way more attention on the bad actors in this space. And FTX are being accused of taking deposited funds and using them to leverage against the market for their own gain, which is a horrific abuse of, deposited funds. So it's a very difficult situation a lot of us find ourselves in. I feel immensely for anyone who was not able to get their funds out of FTX before all of this kicked off.
Yeah.
Because with their bankruptcy seemingly impending, who knows what's going to happen to what you had in FTX. But I will add two lighter notes, but just 2 points of interest here. One, there's obviously opportunity with the crypto markets down. If you're getting into the right currencies, if you're, trading in and out of stablecoins correctly, for this to be a big opportunity. As we always say, the next bull markets, whales are made in the pits of the bear. So there you go. And also, please don't hold your assets in exchanges. Get them on your MetaMask, get them on your ledger, get them in a place where you own them. And if something should happen to an exchange, marketplace, whoever, that you still have access to them. Because, not your keys, not your crypto. That's all I should need to say. And I think with this situation, with Solana, with FTX, with the entire crypto market situation right now, I don't think we need to remind people many more times after this. If you don't have your crypto in ledgers or in accounts where you have full control over it now, you're an idiot. You're just an idiot. Just stick it somewhere where you have control of it and get it away from these exchanges unless you need it in an exchange to move from one crypto to another, whatever the Just please act smart on these things. We've had enough warnings. We've had enough exchanges go down. We've had enough crashes to know to do better. Just do better. It's not hard. But again, I feel for everyone who's been affected. Anyway, that was a huge rant. I probably did a job of explaining what went on. Rob, anything you'd like to clarify? Anything you'd like to add? Any reaction from yourself?
Firstly, agree. Don't keep crypto in exchanges. That's a bad move. I do feel extra sorry for people with FTX because to me, FTX is one of the giants that, like Coinbase, and that makes it a stark reminder that, nothing's safe in this industry. Doesn't matter how big it is, it can fail at the moment. So yeah, that's scary. I've been trying to learn a little bit about what it was going on in Alameda Research's books that caused this. So I should probably go back a step. The Sam Bankman-Fried's companies are FTX, which is one, and then he has a trading company called Alameda Research, and they interact obviously a lot. They're two parts of a larger system. Now, FTX has its own currency, FTT, its own cryptocurrency. That's its own token, and I think Alameda had a leveraged position in which I think its third largest asset was FTT token. So essentially it's taking on debt off its own token it created. I mean, it didn't, FTX did, but it's the same. It might as well be the same company. And so, I mean, a lot of people have said that essentially the majority of Alameda Research's net equity was its own central token, which is, I think it can be. It's kind of easy to brush over how ridiculous that is. It's essentially, imagine you had frequent flyer miles with an airline, and imagine that airline was using its own frequent flyer miles to take on billions in debt and take positions in things. I mean, it's just wild. It's absolutely insane. They invented something and then used it to take on debt, which is, I mean, I'm not a financial expert, and I know that, taking on debt and leveraging your position is absolutely essential for a company of that size. And I'm sure there were very intelligent plays at hand, but that cannot be one of them. And that seems to be the chief criticism at the moment, is how crazy that balance sheet was for Alameda Research, which started the descent because Ian Allison of CoinDesk somebody leaked it to him. I saw lots of people saying it was CZ leaked it. I mean, he said himself it wasn't. He won't say who it was because you don't have to as a journalist. But also on that note, high five for journalism, because it really does keep things in check. We obviously don't have much regulation yet. And journalism is doing a good job. It's a shame what has happened, but it also needed to happen. We need these things to happen so we can learn from them and adjust. And I know one of the calls at the moment is that you should have, what did they call it? Open reserves, I think they called it. Where the exchanges you should be able to see what they've got in their reserves. So, you don't have this issue of liquidity where, you'd get prior warning because you can see what the exchange has got in reserves. And I think this is a really interesting point, and everyone I've seen discuss it hasn't brought up the point that I want them to bring up. So I'm going to do it. Cryptocurrencies was invented to get around the fact that banks had central control and no transparency. And yet these exchanges, which have become central to crypto, have become the foundational pillars of crypto, are the least transparent organizations I mean, they might be worse than banks because they don't have any regulation to adhere to. So it seems wild to me that we can't see it. It should be, if not on chain, it should be transparent. And I think open reserves, I know I read something earlier that a lot of exchanges are rushing to do that now to show, you know, maybe to steady the ship, but also to offer that level of transparency. But the fact that it took an event of this caliber to cause that change is kind of scary. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add to that, really.
No, I thought just to add on top of that, I don't know if you've read through the thread that Sam Bankman-Fried put on Twitter a few hours ago, but basically it starts with "I'm sorry, I messed up," and it ends with Alameda Research is going to wind down trading.
Shocker.
And I just want to read verbatim the kind of the top.
Sorry, before you do that, can we just can I just add what SBF tweeted on the 7th of November? We're recording this on the 10th of November. That's when this tweet that John's about to read went out, the 10th of November. On the 7th of November, SBF tweeted, "A competitor is trying to go after us with false rumours. FTX is fine. Assets are fine." And then went on to some other details. Two quick things before you read that. So one, every time someone senior at a major company tweets, "Everything is fine," everything is terrible. Like that is nailed on. If anyone at any company says, "Oh, everything's fine," like relax, you're like, okay, I need to sell immediately. Like FUD is ramping up fast. And also, does he come under some sort of legal action? Because a lot of what he said is barefaced lies.
Almost certainly. I mean, this is a thing where in a traditional sense, you know, if this was I don't know, someone high up bank saying this, they'd end up in jail.
Well, maybe.
But this is the problem that we have with a lot of people in the crypto space are treating exchanges kind of like banks. It's like, hey, I'll just keep it here, and I can, you know, can exchange my crypto for another crypto, and I can store stuff here. And it's not the case. And like you said, we're running into the exact same problems that we shouldn't be having. Yeah. Because blockchain is supposed to prevent all of this. But anyway, like you said, on the 7th, Sam Bankman-Fried said everything is fine. There's nothing to worry about. On the 10th, he says, "I'm sorry, I f***ed up." And basically said he couldn't say anything for the past day or two because he didn't know whether the Binance acquisition deal was going to go ahead. He ends that thread by saying Alameda Research is going to wind down trading. And I just want to read the top response to that thread, which, I mean, he's been ratioed pretty hard here. I'm not going to lie. But a Twitter account called benjamin.eth says, "You didn't f*** up, you frauded up, you commingled customer deposits to leverage your own trading, you donated their funds to politicians to line your own pockets and curry favours, all while lobbying against DeFi. F*** off." And I think that's a pretty good sense of what the community feels right now. I honestly, the whole politician, lining pockets thing, speculation. But from a general sense, yeah, I think there's a lot of people very, very off with Sam Bankman-Fried right now. And I mean, the fallout from this situation is going to stretch over the next several weeks, if not months. You know, what's going to happen to FTX? How does this change Binance's position? What does this mean for regulation? I mean, Jonah, the co-founder of AtomicHub, he's going to Brussels to speak to I believe it's the European Council in a few weeks' time to discuss crypto regulation. You know, things like this, it's just what's going to be on everyone's lips for the next few weeks. Whether you're, a diehard into the Web3 ecosystem, or whether you're just reading, Financial Times and Bloomberg articles, this is going to be the only thing that people are going to talk about for a while. And we've started to see the markets recover. I was able to purchase some ETH at $1,100, and it's currently at $1,250, so I'm happy with myself. But it's for the industry at large, it's a sorry state of affairs, and it just from my point of view, and I hate banging on about regulation on this podcast, but it just shows we need people doing things properly. We need regulations in place to stop idiots doing things like this, because this kind of situation is just going to keep happening again and again and again until there's better accountability, more transparency, more regulations and things in place to stop people being morons. And I don't want to place any of the blame for this on the community, but, I think the more that we, people like you and me and other media outlets spread the idea that, hey, not your keys, not your wallets, don't keep things on exchanges, keep them, on ledgers and things, then I think if we don't do that, these things are going to keep happening, and it's such a shit, isn't it?
It's pretty, yeah. It's pretty terrible. I was, I'm comfortable with sharing this. I was talking to one of the people that work at Token Gamer with me, and I said my portfolio's value compared to this time last year, excluding NFTs, which I can't be bothered to work out, is down about 90% from last year. So, it's crazy. And then you've got to add on top of that a lot of these people affected by this won't even be able to get the small amount they might have had left, or you never know what people's situation is. And I know Sam Bankman-Fried has said, the first priority is getting people's money back to them. I don't really see how it's going to happen. And I tell you one thing that I haven't seen anyone else mention either, which worried me, is when a company looks to acquire another company. I have limited experience with this. I've seen major companies being acquired by other major companies in a few different industries I've worked in and worked with, and I've watched it happen from the sidelines. So I don't know the intricacies, but I do know generally what happens. The due diligence phase is very, very long. You have to be very thorough. The bigger the organization, the more work, the longer it takes. Sorry, did it take about 12 hours for Binance to go, absolutely not? Because that is scary.
It wasn't a lot of time at all.
I think it's about, that's from when it was public. It was probably less than that. But it's certainly under a day, Binance looked at it and went, no, no, thank you. We don't want this on our books. So it must be in a horrendous state. And, you mentioned how this affects the industry at large. Obviously, at a macro level, this is annihilating everything. There's red everywhere. It's very sad and difficult and rubbish, and 2022 can get in the bin. But it also affects what my personal interest and my niche, which is blockchain gaming, because there was FTX gaming, and then there was FTX Ventures, which I saw a screenshot. I haven't checked it myself. I can probably check it now. That these websites have already been shut off, which is I actually can't see. I can't tell, but that's terrifying. I think the FTX Ventures had about $1 billion worth that was going into things, and I know a lot of games. There was a lot. Tom Brady and Kim Kardashian were partnered with FTX. So think how many people within Web3, how many companies, and that's really heartbreaking that, these people, imagine you had this idea that you wanted to build a game or something, and you were so excited and you needed money and you couldn't get funding, and then you get FTX to invest in you. Of all people, you get FTX. You must think, that's it. We've made it. We're actually going to be able to do what we've always wanted to do. And presumably they will never see a penny now if they saw anything in the first place. And that's really rough. I don't know how many projects are going to be affected, but I know it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, I don't know about the other websites, but FTX.com is currently still up, but it does say they're currently unable to process withdrawals, and they strongly advise against depositing. I'd never used FTX, thankfully.
I use their app every day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That reminds me. That's one thing we should say. When you were giving advice, and I was like, I've got to remember to say that. So when this goes out, this may not still be true. I hope it is, but FTX US and FTX International are two separately operating companies, and people have been able to get their money out of FTX International. I imagine they'll freeze that at some point, particularly with people rushing to get the money off the exchange. But if you've just given up hope before trying, which doesn't seem likely, but if you have, please go give it a go if you're not on FTX US. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. I think Sam Bankman-Fried said in his thread that there'd been roughly $5 billion worth of withdrawals before they turned off withdrawals on FTX. So hopefully most people have been able to get their money off, but still for those that still have assets or that, went away from the weekend and came back to this, I hope there are recourses available.
Yeah, I saw, was it the Immutable co-founder Robbie was like yesterday said, I've just got off a 16-hour flight. Has anything happened? Anything interesting happened? Something like that.
If you guys don't follow him, I would absolutely suggest it. It's OXFerg. His tweets are fantastic. Great mix of memes and an industry commentary and, in fairness, what Immutable's doing to build the future. But anyway, FTX. My only exposure to FTX is that they were a sponsor of the Mercedes Formula One team. So I assume that's going to fall through.
Yep.
But let's end things on a more positive note. So two things. Just to reiterate something I said earlier. Crypto's down across the board. The price of wax is at 6 cents. I think it almost went below 5 yesterday. But anyway, if you believe in cryptocurrency, if you believe in, a Web3 decentralized future and all that stuff, then now might not be a bad time to look at what you're holding and see whether it makes sense to move into another coin or, exchange fiat for crypto or move into stablecoin or whatever. You can judge that for yourself. And two, some of us have been getting Twitter ticks.
Yeah, it feels a little disingenuous, but
it does. So I think I saw earlier Token Gamer.
I was just curious. Last night, it was 1 a.m. I was just in bed. My son had just dropped off, and I was like, $6.99. Let's find out. I wonder how much they've made. They've made an absolute killing, haven't they?
Oh, they have. Yeah. I've got my personal Twitter verified, but I wish I'd seen. Or wish I'd known that you can only verify one Twitter account per iOS account. So I'm in a weird situation at the moment.
NFT Insider and AtomicHub?
Yeah, so AtomicHub's based in Germany, so I don't think it's available there yet.
Okay.
But, so I'm personally verified, but NFT Insider isn't.
Right.
Which I wish I'd kind of done that the other way around in hindsight, but yeah, I mean, if you haven't already, I suppose, go get a Twitter verified tick if you care.
I haven't seen much benefit, to be honest. I was just curious because there's a whole list of things you get for it, and it's at some introductory price. So I thought, I'll have a look.
I think for Token Gamer, this won't matter so much, but for personal accounts, it might be important to know. Once you're verified, you can't change your bio or your name or your profile picture. So before you verify your account, just make sure all of those are what you want them to be. Because I heard this on the space that Frank de Gods did yesterday, actually. I can't remember who it was that brought it up, but like, my PFP is like this image in Paint right now, and I can't change it. So, just, I suppose, keep an eye on Elon's Twitter feed to see when that's fixed. But yeah, this has been I was going to say an episode of two halves, but I think it's been 10% good stuff and 90% absolute misery.
1% McCain.
But 1% McCain. I want to say things can only go up from here, but we've yet to see what's actually going to happen with FTX. And with regulation at large.
Yeah.
So
I worry there's a lot of one of the replies, just to get just a quick final point, I guess. One of the replies from Alameda Research was that the leaked document doesn't show God knows how many billions of assets. It's missing. It's not a complete picture, was their reply. Which was meant to calm people, but now we know what the extent of the problem. What worries me is what they did hold, because that's essentially what caused the Solana slide. that I think there's a lot more bombs to be dropped. So strap in, because I don't imagine we're going to have a fun month.
No, not at all. Well, hey, this time last year, literally about this time last year,
All-time
we
highs.
were rising towards all-time highs.
Yep.
And this year, I know several coins hit an all-time low. So, Bull Run 2023?
I don't know,
This time next year, we'll...
I just remembered, didn't we do predictions? Did we do a predictions episode?
We did at the end of the year,
we predicted
last year.
We predicted what the wax price was going to be, and I think I joked 20 cents because that's what it was stuck at for God knows how long. How wildly optimistic of me!
I dread to think what I said in most of that video. Well, I guess we'll see when it comes to doing our
we'll have to do
2022 recap.
Oh God!
But yeah,
it's gonna be a sad video. Should we get drunk for that? I think we should get drunk for that.
Yeah, I think we should. We'll do a more relaxed.
We'll do it live on stream, and we'll just get drunk,
hilarious.
and we'll take comments and criticisms in the chat.
I think it'd be a blast. But anyway, there we go. Episode 44 in the books. Wish it could have been a more positive one, but times are what they are. Rob, where can we find you?
Look at the camera. You can find me at tokengamer.io for all the latest blockchain gaming news. Then our app, which is Token Gamer on iOS and Android. What else do we have? We have our Twitch channel. Superdope is now streaming more often. He's now up to 3 days per week, which is awesome. And last night, I think he played Warsaken. Was it last night? I mean,
very cool.
He was playing Warsaken with some of the guys from Warsaken, and it was amazing. Loads of people tuned in, and it was all good stuff. So make sure you check that out. The YouTube channel, I'm hoping to get more content out onto, so that's worth a look. But it does have stream highlights on, and Wax account, I guess, is worth a look.com, waxaccount.com, which is it's to go with our companion app, which allows you to do a lot of analytics to do with your Wax wallet. I think that's everything from me. Someone won 1,000 Wax from us today. I haven't actually told the person they've won 1,000 Wax. They're not
worth now about 30 cents.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this time last year, they would have won like $800, $900. So, you got to look at it like that. The person never can I be called out on integrity, because this person that's won it isn't in the Token Gamer community in any way, shape or form. They're not in our Discord. They don't follow us on Twitter. They're absolutely nothing to do with this. They just fancied 1,000 Wax, and that's how competitions go. So I will be depositing that after this podcast. Okay, that's enough for me. I don't want to look at this camera anymore. I find it weird. John,
you can look away.
Where can people find you?
So for NFT Insiders, NFTinsider.io for the latest NFT news. Got that interesting article on the vending machine to come out, which it's, if nothing else, it's going to be funny. So you can look out for that. Got a bunch of interviews coming up as well, and of course all the same content that we do every single week. For the socials, NFTinsider_IO. There's some giveaways we're doing at the moment, all sorts of other fun stuff, and of course our newsletter, NFTinsider.io/newsletter for your weekly dose of everything that's happening in the NFT space. For me personally, it's at Hydropowered, HYDROPWRD, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse, Meta, or Oculus, whatever the name of the account is. Mastodon. Have you got on Mastodon yet?
That's a dinosaur.
Rob? It's supposed to be like a Twitter alternative, but it's been blowing up the last week, so I thought I'd get myself an account on there. And I'm sure many other places. CoinMarketCap community as well. So
I did join that.
Yeah.
And and just in case they're listening, I joined, I put a lot of effort into it. And after 3 attempts, it kept deleting my profile information that I was entering, including profile picture and bio and description. And I put it in and I click save and it would be gone. So you are time wasting scum, and I shan't be back.
Oh, jeez.
No, I will. Please fix it.
Everything's going well in crypto this week, isn't it?
It's all good.
Anyway, Twitter's the main platform for me. Industry commentary, me talking about red candles a lot.
Sure.
Me speculating on things, all that good stuff. Go check out, if you're a publisher or an advertiser, go check out Atomic Ads if you haven't done already, atomicads.io. got a lot of interest in it, and it's actually growing really quickly. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that grow. But other than that, I think it's time for us to get off this podcast and go do something fun. So we stop thinking about.
I think I'm going to go and have a little cry, and then
that sounds about right.
Little cry, sit in the dark for a bit, and then and think of. I'm going to look at pictures from November 2021. Pictures of you and I like laughing and smiling, screenshots of my portfolio.
I don't even want to look at screenshots of what my wallet's like.
I don't suppose you have time hop, do you?
I don't think so, no. For
some reason, I still have it. I always, I don't know why, but I've had it for a long time, and it's linked to everything I have, including Apple Cloud and Google Cloud. So it shows me screenshots. And that's how I know that almost to the day I'm down 90% in my crypto portfolio. So, yeah.
Sounds like something you want to turn off.
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, I didn't expect. I expect to see old pictures of like me and stuff, but yeah. So Ruben, if you're watching this, Christmas is going to be bleak, my boy. You're not getting anything this year.
Oh my word!
No, it's fine. He can have like fruit or something.
You can have fruit.
Yeah, he'd be
fantastic.
Right. That's good for you.
Or maybe give him one of those damaged Funko figurines.
Yeah, character building. This sort of Christmas.
Yeah, for sure. Well, anyway, that's episode 44 in the books. Thank you very much for watching. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, 5-star podcast review would be awesome. Follow us on Twitter @Mint1Pod. I swear I'll start tweeting more on that Twitter at some point. And yeah, let's just go. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you again next week.